At 3 a.m., I watched a little girl drawing two figures in the sand out in the courtyard. No one in the compound had a child. She looked up right at me and smiled. I didn't understand why that unsettled me. Not yet. But then, I'm getting ahead of myself. 3 days earlier, I had been standing outside number 7 Gbemisola Street with my entire life packed into 2 bags, an NYSC discharge certificate in one hand, and my last 10,000 naira in the other. I was broke. Not, I need to cut back on takeout broke. I was, if this apartment costs 1 naira more than the agent said, I'm going back to Ibadan broke. The compound looked fine. Old, definitely. The kind of old that made you wonder whether the building had been standing there since independence and simply refused to die. But it was clean. The walls were still standing. The gate worked. And most importantly, the rent was 70,000 naira for the year. 70,000 in Surulere. I looked at the agent. What's wrong with it? Kunle shrugged. Nothing. Then why is it this cheap? It's old. That's all. Landlady is strict. Some tenants are weird. He paused. But it's available. That was apparently his entire sales pitch. I had been doing job hunting for 3 months since finishing my service year. 3 months of applications, interviews, and emails that somehow always ended with, "We'll get back to you." They never did. My savings were nearly finished, and my mother had started calling every other day to ask when I was coming home, which was mother code for, "Your room is about to become a prayer room." So when Kunle said 70,000, I didn't ask any more questions. I'll take it. I should have asked more questions. Especially when the landlady told me not to open the pouch. The woman everybody called Mama Shegun was sitting behind the table counting my money. She counted every note twice. Then she pulled out a small pouch tied with red cloth. "Keep this in your room." I took it. It was surprisingly heavy. "What's inside?" "Protection." "Protection from what?" She smiled. "From needing to know what's inside." That should have been my clue to leave. Instead, I put it in my bag. She handed me the key to room 3. "Don't go near the well." I blinked. "The what?" "The well." She pointed toward the courtyard. "It's covered. Don't uncover it. Don't touch it. Don't drop anything inside. Don't even look at it for too long." I stared at her. "Mama, why do you have a well in the middle of the compound?" "Because it was there before the compound." She said it casually. "Before Surulere, before Lagos decided to call itself Lagos." Then she looked directly at me. "Some things you don't remove, you just walk around them." I wasn't sure what that meant. Room 3 was small, but clean. There were still marks on the wall where the previous tenant had hung things, and a faint outline on the dusty floor where furniture had once stood. I unpacked my clothes, my books, and my laptop, which was being held together by prayer and optimism. It wasn't much, but it was mine, at least for now. I was arranging my books when I heard singing. A child's voice, soft, coming from the courtyard. I walked to the window, and there she was. A little girl was sitting beside a covered well. She looked about 7 or 8. She wore a faded yellow dress. Her hair was neatly plaited in an old-fashioned style, and she was drawing circles in the sand with a stick. As she drew, she sang in Yoruba. The melody was strange, not frightening, just old. The kind of song that sounded as though it had been passed from one generation to another until nobody remembered where it came from. I watched her for several seconds. Then she stopped singing, stopped drawing, and slowly turned her head toward my window. Our eyes met. Her face looked perfectly normal, pretty even, but her expression wasn't. There was something too old in her eyes, something that didn't belong on the face of a child. Then she smiled and went back to drawing. I stepped away from the window. Okay, I whispered. That's normal. It was not normal. But I was broke, unemployed, and desperate for somewhere to live. So I decided that normal was a flexible concept. That evening, I met the other tenants. Uncle Biodun was a retired civil servant who had apparently spent 30 years in government and intended to spend the next 30 talking about it. Mama Ejiro sold provisions from her room, and Yinka, the youngest tenant, spent almost every waking moment staring at his laptop. Within 10 minutes, Uncle Biodun had told me about his planned memoir. Within 15, Mama Ejiro had informed him nobody wanted to read about filing procedures from 1987. And in 20 minutes, they were arguing about whether Fela was better than Bob Marley. Fela was objectively better, Uncle Biodun declared. Music preference cannot be objective, Inka said without looking up. I laughed. For the first time since moving in, I relaxed. Maybe this place wasn't so bad. Then Mama Ejiro asked, So, did Mama Shigun tell you about the well? I stopped smiling. Yes. And the girl? I looked at her. I saw her. The courtyard went quiet. Uncle Biodun lowered his cup. Inka finally looked up from his laptop. You saw her? Yes. Yellow dress? Yes. Drawing? Yes. Nobody said anything. I looked from one face to another. Can someone please tell me what's going on? Uncle Biodun sighed. That's Ronke. Who's Ronke? Mama Ejiro answered. Mama Shigun's daughter. I frowned. She has a daughter? Had. The word sat heavily between us. Ronke was born in 1975, Uncle Biodun said. She drowned in that well in 1983. I stared at him. How old was she? 8. The laughter from a neighboring compound suddenly seemed very far away. So you're telling me that the little girl I saw, she's been 8 years old for 43 years, Uncle Biodun said. I swallowed. She's a ghost? We don't know what she is. Yinka shrugged. But she appears sometimes, always in the courtyard, usually by the well. Why doesn't anyone do anything? Mama Ejiro gave me a look. Do what? I don't know. Exorcise her? Uncle Biodun laughed. With what? Catholic priest? Pastor? Imam? Traditional healer? We have tried ignoring her. So far, ignoring her has been the most successful method. Inka went back to his laptop. She never hurts anyone. I looked at him. Never? He hesitated. Not directly. That was not reassuring. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 2 in the morning, I opened my laptop and started searching. Nothing. No news article, no newspaper archive, no mention of a drowning at number 7 Gbemisola Street. It was as if Ronke had never existed. Then I found a Nairaland thread. I escaped the last house on Gbemisola Street, my story. I read the entire thing. Then I read it again. A former tenant described strange noises, a crying woman, a dead tenant, and something beneath the compound that seemed to feed on people. Most of the comments called the story fiction. Others told the poster to leave Lagos immediately. Then I saw one comment that made my stomach tighten. Someone wrote that her 6-year-old sister had visited the compound. The girl had come home talking about a friend, a girl in a yellow dress. Nobody in the compound had a daughter. Another commenter replied, the girl in the yellow dress takes children. Not always, not quickly, but she takes them eventually. To where she is, to the well. I closed the laptop, then opened it again, because apparently I had no survival instincts. More comments appeared. A child had supposedly played with the girl and said she was teaching him to swim. Another person claimed that although the well had been covered for decades, they could still hear water splashing inside at night. And one comment said, she wants company. She wants someone to remember her. I stared at that sentence. Then my phone rang. 2:30 in the morning, and it was my little sister. Kemi. Her voice was full of excitement. Sister, guess what? What? Mommy said I can come to Lagos. My blood went cold. For what? My birthday. I closed my eyes. Kemi was turning 7. She'd begged me for months to let her visit. The same age the little girl in the courtyard had apparently been when something happened to her. Kemi, maybe this weekend isn't a good time, but you promised. She was practically shouting through the phone. You said when you go your own place I could visit. I rubbed my forehead. Kemi, please. I heard my mother's voice somewhere behind her. Then Kemi again. I want to see Lagos. I want to see your room. I want to meet your neighbors. I looked toward my window. The courtyard was dark, but I could hear her singing. A child's voice. That same old Yoruba melody. Kemi, I whispered. Yes? Fine. She screamed, yes! But you stay with me the entire time. I will. No wandering. I won't. No talking to strangers. I'm not a baby. I know. I stared at the window. Just promise me. I promise. She hung up. I sat in the darkness. The singing outside continued. I went to the window. Ronke was there. It was nearly 3 in the morning. She was sitting beside the well, drawing in the sand. But this time, I could see what she was drawing. 2 little girls, holding hands, walking toward water. Ronke stopped. Slowly, she looked up at my window and smiled. The next 6 days passed in a blur of job applications and pretending everything was fine. I avoided the courtyard whenever possible. The other tenants noticed. Uncle Building finally cornered me on Thursday. Your sister is visiting this weekend, Abby. How do you know? You were talking on the phone. He studied me. You're worried. I'm fine. You're making the face people make when they're about to do something stupid. I promised my sister. How old is she? 7. His expression changed. The girl in the courtyard was 8 when she died. I know. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. There's something else. I waited. Some people say Ronke didn't simply fall into the well. I stared at him. What do they say? That she was called. Called by what? He glanced toward the courtyard. What's underneath this place? I almost laughed. You're serious? I've lived here 12 years. He looked tired. I've seen things I can't explain. Then why are you still here? He smiled without humor. Because I'm old, I'm broke, and Lagos rent doesn't care about supernatural phenomena. That was the most convincing argument anyone had made all week. Then he looked at me. Keep your sister away from that well. I will. Keep her away from the girl. I will. And if she says she can see someone you can't. He stopped. What? Don't let her follow. Friday evening, I went to the motor park at Jibo to pick Kemi up. The bus from Ibadan pulled in amid the usual Lagos chaos. Conductors shouting, touts arguing, diesel fumes, people carrying bags that looked heavier than the people carrying them. Then Kemi jumped off the bus. Sister! She ran straight into me. I hugged her. She smelled like coconut oil and childhood. Happy birthday. It's tomorrow. I know. Where's your house? I laughed. Come and see. She was excited about everything. The buses, the traffic, the noise, the shops. I guess Lagos looked magical through the eyes of a 7-year-old child, though not all that different from Ibadan. I wished I could see it that way. Instead, I kept thinking, keep her safe, keep her away from the well, keep her away from Ronke. It was only 2 days. We just had to survive 2 days. Kemi loved room 3 immediately. She dumped her bag on the bed and started asking questions. Do you have a TV? No. Wi-Fi? No. Generator? Sometimes. Playground? No. Can I go outside? I sighed. For a little while. The courtyard was empty. No Ronke. Good. Majiro came out almost immediately and welcomed Kemi with sweets. Uncle Bildun came to meet her. Even Yinka appeared briefly before disappearing back into his room. Kemi was delighted. She saw the well. What's that? A well. Does it work? No. Can I see inside? No. Why? Because I said so. She looked at me suspiciously. That's not an answer. You are 7. Exactly. Mama Ejiri laughed. She's sharp. She's troublesome. Kemi ran around the courtyard. I watched her closely. The sun began to set. Mama Ejiri leaned toward me. The girl hasn't appeared today. I looked at the courtyard. Maybe that's good. Maybe. We watched Kemi play. Then she stopped. Completely. 1 second she was running. The next, she was standing beside the wall, staring toward the well. Kemi, she didn't answer. Kemi, slowly she started walking toward the well. My heart slammed against my rib. Kemi! She kept walking. I ran. I reached her just before she touched the wooden cover. I grabbed her arm. Kemi, what are you doing? She blinked, like she had just woken up. There's someone here. No, there is not. Yes, there is. Who? She looked toward the empty space beside the well. A smile spread across her face. Her name is Ronke. My blood went cold. Kemi lifted her hand. She wants to show me something. I looked at the empty space. There was nobody there. But Kemi was looking at someone. Really looking. She's right there, sister. Kemi, come inside. But she's my friend. Inside, now. I pulled her toward room 3. She protested the whole way. Once inside, I locked the door, closed the curtains, then crouched in front of her. Listen to me. Kemi's lower lip trembled. If you see that girl again, don't talk to her. Why? Because I said so. But she's nice. I hesitated. How exactly was I supposed to explain to a 7-year-old that the child she wanted to play with had drowned in our compound 43 years ago? Just trust me. Kemi folded her arms. You're being weird. I know. I'm not going to talk to her. Promise? She nodded. Promise. That night, after Kemi fell asleep, I sat beside the window. I watched the courtyard. Midnight came. Nothing. 1 o'clock. Nothing. Then at exactly 2:07 a.m., I heard it. Singing. I looked outside. Ronke stood beside the well. She was drawing in the sand. 2 girls, holding hands, walking toward water. She stopped drawing, looked up, straight at me, and this time, there was no smile on her face. Only loneliness. The kind of loneliness that had 43 years to grow. I suddenly understood something. Ronke wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me, toward the bed where my little sister slept, and beneath the window, written in the sand, was a third figure, a little girl, standing beside the well, waiting. The next morning, Kemi woke me by jumping on my bed. It's my birthday! I groaned. You're 7. You're allowed to sleep. No. She bounced again. It's my birthday! I had planned a small celebration, cake, a few presents, maybe a cheap outing if I could afford it. Most importantly, I planned to keep her inside, away from the courtyard, away from Ronke, away from the well. But Kemi had other plans. Can we have my party outside? No, please, no. Kemi, please. She clasped her hands together. I never had a birthday party before. That stopped me. She was right. Money had always been tight. I'd spent most of my university days helping mom look after her. Kemi had never asked for much, just attention, just love, just one normal birthday. Okay, I said. Her face lit up. But you stay beside me, I promise. And that was how, by afternoon, the courtyard of number 7 Gbemisola Street became a birthday party. Mama Ejiro contributed drinks and snacks. Uncle Biodun insisted on leading the singing. Yinka even closed his laptop. Balloons hung from the walls. There was a small cake. Plastic chairs formed a circle. And Kemi stood in the middle of it all, wearing her birthday dress, smiling like she had won the lottery. For the first time since arriving in the compound, I relaxed. Maybe nothing would happen. Maybe Ronke would stay away. Maybe the warnings had been exaggerated. Maybe. Kemi blew out her candles. Everyone clapped. She smiled, then looked toward the well. Ronke wants some cake. The courtyard went silent. I felt every muscle in my body tighten. Kemi. She's there, she pointed at an empty patch of sand. There's nobody there. Yes, there is. Kemi smiled. She says it's her birthday too. Nobody moved. Then Uncle Biodun touched my arm. Wait. I looked at him. Wait for what? He glanced toward Kemi. She can see her. I know. No. His voice dropped. She can really see her. Mama Ejiro slowly nodded. Maybe that's why Ronke has been waiting. Waiting for what? For someone who can hear her. Kemi was staring at the empty space. Then she smiled. She says her mommy doesn't talk about her anymore. My stomach dropped. Who? Her mommy. Kemi frowned. She says it makes her sad. I knelt beside her. Kemi, come here. But Kemi didn't move. Instead, she reached out her hand, like she was holding another child's hand. She wants to show me something. No, I stood. Kemi, come here. She's not trying to hurt me. Come here. She wants to show me what happened. I grabbed her hand and she screamed, Let go! I froze. Kemi had never spoken to me like that. Her eyes changed. Not completely, but enough. Enough that I knew the voice coming from her mouth wasn't entirely hers. Listen to her. The voice was older, rougher, full of grief. Kemi's mouth moved again, but this time, two voices came out, one little, one old. She didn't forget because she wanted to. Nobody spoke. She forgot because she couldn't bear it. The courtyard seemed to shrink around us. Kemi's eyes stared straight ahead. She was arguing with him when I fell. I held my sister tighter. The uncle, the voice trembled, not my father, a boss. They were shouting about money. Kemi's face twisted. I wanted to see the water. The voice became smaller. I fell. Then, I drowned. I felt sick. She found me. Kemi's voice cracked. She screamed. A tear rolled down her cheek. She screamed and screamed. Then silence. And then she stopped. The courtyard was completely still. She stopped screaming. Kemi whispered. She stopped saying my name. The voice became barely audible. She forgot me. I looked toward Mama Ejiro. She was crying. Kemi continued. Every August, she remembers. He paused. Every August, she gets sick. Another pause. And every August, Kemi's voice broke. I drown again. Then she looked directly at me. She doesn't want to hurt your sister. The voice changed. She wants her mother to remember. I swallowed. How do we help you? The little girl looked at me through my sister's eyes. Make her say my name. Who? My mommy. The voice became tiny. Before August 12th. My blood ran cold. Why? Because that's when the world takes me again. Kemi shuddered. It makes me drown. Her eyes filled with tears. Again. And if we can't make her remember, the answer came softly, then I'll keep looking for company. I tightened my grip on Kemi. Company? Someone to stay with me. Her voice cracked. I'm so lonely. Then Kemi gasped. Her body went limp. I caught her before she hit the ground. Kemi! Her eyes fluttered. She looked around. What happened? It's okay. Why am I at the well? I held her tightly. She looked frightened. I had a weird dream. I carried her inside. She fell asleep almost immediately. But before she did, she whispered, Ronke was sad. Then she showed me her mommy. That evening, the tenants gathered in my room. Uncle Bioden, Mama Ejiro, Yinka. Nobody joked. Nobody argued about music. Nobody even touched their phones. We know what she wants now, Uncle Bioden said. I looked at him. She wants her mother to remember her. And if Mama Shegun refuses? Mama Ejiro looked toward the window. Then Ronke keeps trying to find another child. I looked at Kemi sleeping on my bed. No. My voice was firm. We're not using my sister's beat. We're not. Then what do we do? Inka finally spoke. Find proof. Proof of what? That Ronke existed. He opened his laptop. You know how terrible Nigeria is at record keeping, but maybe we can find birth records, death certificates, photographs, anything. Back in the day, before independence, maybe there were records. We spent the entire 3 days digging. Uncle Pioden had kept old newspapers and documents from me for reasons nobody understood. Mama Ejiro remembered things she'd witnessed. Inka somehow found records. Ronke Adeyemi, born August 12, 1975. Mother, Olufumilayo Adeyemi. Cause of death, accidental drowning. The death certificate had been filed 2 months after the drowning. 2 months. She couldn't file it. Dayo whispered. Yinka nodded. Maybe she couldn't sign the paper that said her daughter was dead. Then Mama Ejiro found something. A photograph. It was old and faded. A compound birthday party from years earlier. Mama Shegu's room was visible in the background. And inside the room was a small picture frame. A little girl in a yellow dress. Ronke. She had been real. She had been loved. And somewhere inside Mama Shegun's apartment, she had never completely disappeared. We had our proof. Now we had to make Mama Shegun remember. 2 weeks before August 12th, we went to her door. All of us. Uncle Bioden knocked. Mama Shegun opened. She looked older than I'd ever seen her. What is this? It's about Ronke, I said. Her face changed. Not fear, something worse. I don't know what you're talking about. Your daughter. There is no daughter. Ronke Adeyemi. Her hand tightened around the door. Leave. She is still here? No. She's been waiting for you. Leave my house. Mama Ejiro held up the photograph, then explained this. Mama Shegun stared at it. Her face went white. Why do you keep our picture? No answer. Why do you get sick every August? Still nothing. Why don't you rent to families with little girls? Her eyes filled with tears. Stop. I stepped closer. She spoke through my sister. Mama Shegun looked at me. She told us what happened. Stop. She told us about the argument. Stop. She told us to stop falling. She told us about falling into the well. Stop! The courtyard lights flickered. Something splashed inside the covered well. Once, twice, then again. Mama Shegun's face crumpled. If I remember, she whispered. If I remember, I will feel it. You will. Then grief will kill me. No. I shook my head. It will hurt. She looked at me. But you've already been hurting for 43 years. Uncle Piodun stepped forward. She deserves to be mourned. Mama Shegun began to cry. I can't bring her back. No, I said. But you can let her go. For a long time, nobody moved. Then Mama Shegun nodded. Tell me what to do. She walked toward the well, slowly. Everyone followed behind her. She placed both hands on the cover. The splashing inside became louder. Mama Shegun closed her eyes. Ronke. Nothing happened. She swallowed. Ronke Adeyemi. The courtyard lights flickered. My daughter. A wind moved through the courtyard. You are 8 years old. Her voice broke. You loved singing. She laughed through her tears. You loved mangoes. She began crying harder. You loved drawing in the sand. Then she said the words she'd spent 43 years refusing to say. I was arguing with Kunle about money. The courtyard went silent. I wasn't watching you. Her knees began to shake. You wanted to see the water. She pressed her forehead against the wooden cover. And you fell. She sobbed. I heard the splash. She could barely speak now. I ran. Her voice broke completely. But I couldn't reach you. She sank to her knees. I pulled you out. She covered her face, but you were already gone. Then she whispered, I'm sorry. The well began to glow, not brightly, just a faint light beneath the cracks in the wooden cover. Mama Shegun looked up, and there she was, a little girl in a yellow dress, not wet, not grey, not frightening, just a child, just Ronke. Mama Shegun stared. Ronke? The girl smiled. Hi, Mama. Mama Shegun began sobbing. My baby. I remembered. I never stopped loving you. I know. I was scared. I know. I thought if I forgot you, the pain would go away. Ronke shook her head. It didn't. No. But you remembered me now. Mama Shegun reached toward her. I don't want you to go. You have to let me. I just found you. You never lost me. Ronke smiled. I was always here. Her body began to fade. Where are you going? Somewhere I don't have to drown anymore. Mama Shegun cried. I need more time. You had 43 years. The little girl smiled sadly. And now you can have the rest of your life. Then Ronke disappeared. The courtyard became still. No singing, no splashing, no little girl drawing in the sand. Just Mama Shegun kneeling beside the well, crying. But for the first time in 43 years, she was crying for her daughter, not running from her. The next morning, Kemi woke up smiling. Ronke visited me. I froze. What did she say? She said thank you. For what? For helping her find her mommy. I stared at my sister. She was happy. Then Kemi hugged me. Thank you for my birthday. I smiled. even though it was weird, especially because it was weird. She laughed. A few hours later, I took her back to the motor park. She boarded the bus to Ibadan. I watched till it disappeared into traffic. Then I went back to number 7 Gbemisola Street. For the first time since I moved in, the courtyard was quiet. The well looked ordinary. Just an old wooden cover over an old hole. Nothing supernatural. Nothing written. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe we'd actually done it. Maybe one ghost had finally been allowed to rest. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I opened the message. Day 47 of 60. Have you found your replacement yet? I stared at the screen. My smile disappeared. Another message appeared. The girl is gone. Then, the foundation remains hungry. Then, your debt is still owed. I slowly looked toward the red threaded pouch sitting on my shelf. I'd never opened it. I'd assumed it was protection. No, I wasn't so sure. My phone buzzed again. 13 days. I sat down on my bed. 47 days gone. 13 left. 13 days to find someone to take my place, or go back and fulfill whatever obligation I'd somehow agreed to when I accepted that pouch. I looked out the window. The courtyard was empty. No yellow dress. No singing. No child drawing circles in the sand. For a brief moment, I felt relieved. Then another message appeared. Choose wisely. I didn't know what frightened me more. The fact that something beneath that compound was still hungry, or the fact that I was beginning to understand what it wanted. A replacement. Someone else. Someone who would move into room 3. Someone who would become me. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Jennifer from work. Girl, I'm desperate. My landlord just increased my rent by 40%. Do you know any cheap places in Surulere? I'll take anything at this point. I stared at her message, then at the courtyard, then back at the phone. I knew a place, a very cheap place, a place with a room available, a place where the landlord gives tenants a little pouch tied with red thread. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. All I had to do was send her the address and I'd be free.